Hello, everyone, and welcome from a galaxy far, far away to another episode of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, sometimes known as Rocha Fett here. Excited to be joined back into the world of Star Wars with these two incredible people. Let's introduce them first to my co-host since the beginning on this show. Certainly someone who absolutely lives and breathes Star Wars every day. Love following her on Twitter for her hot takes, her medium takes, and her cold takes as well. But she's awesome with all of it for sure. And someone who's at some point going to take me by the hand and walk me into the High Republic. That's Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
I'm doing amazing. Speaking of all these different temperatures, man, I don't know about you guys. We're having really weird weather in Chicago. This is the coldest June we've ever had. It's really strange. So everything's weird, but it's great. So here we are. You know, what can you do?
The counter here is it's hot as Tatooine here on the West Coast after it's been overcast for about 6 months now. In 2023, the sun came out today, is blazing, and so, some gentleman who's enjoying the blazing sun in the same city that I am, that is the smasher himself, Kevin Smets. How are you, Kevin?
Doing well. You know what the most expensive drink? I have my right mic's on, but the most
it is not on. It is not on. So we got you with an echo here.
Look at this.
We went through the whole.
Well, you know what, you guys.
There it is.
Wait, they haven't changed the graphic yet. You can just cut me out. That's fine. The most expensive drink on Tatooine is a glass of ice water. So,
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, well point. Well said. Well said. And by the way, we're all wearing maroon shirts. Yes. Don't adjust your TV or your screen. It's absolutely what's going on here. We thought we'd have a little fun with it today for sure, just by accident. So here we go. We're going to jump into a lot of things here in the world of Star Wars. We're going to talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff. We're going to talk about some Ahsoka stuff, some Andor stuff, get into all of that, and have a little fun debate about that George Lucas rumor that flamed up the internet all week. And that's what happens when Star Wars is a little slow. People got to come up with stuff to fill the gap, and I guess that was one of those things. And we're going to have some fun talking about all of that as well. Before we jump in, just want to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so you see we're dropping all the content we do here on the Outlaw Nation, especially the Jedi Way for sure. Let's jump into our first story here. And this one is about James Mangold and his upcoming Jedi Origins movie. We got some new story details. Remember, it was announced at Star Wars Celebration 2023. It would be a film that explored the first Jedi to wield the Force. And now we've got more details from James Mangold himself. Speaking with Gizmodo, fine folks over there at Gizmodo, he said he, quote, worked a bit before on other projects at Lucasfilm and understood that much of what they were doing was looking forward. And he says, I've talked to Lucasfilm before and even worked a bit before on their projects, and I'm always interested in what's going on there and have friends who work on those other Star Wars projects, but I understand that much of what they're doing was kind of continuing the saga forward. So when I mentioned to Kathleen Kennedy, who he calls Kathy because he's on a first name basis with her, the idea that I had about going backward, really far backward, I was surprised it excited her and the other wonderful people she works with at Lucasfilm. For me, it's about I want to be part of the saga, but I also don't want to be holding so much lore in the air that you can hardly tell the story. What I really want to do, what I told her was just, can we make kind of 10 commandments of the Force, you know, a kind of origin story of how the Force came to be known, understood, wielded, and harnessed. It's a chance to tell the entire story on its own, which is what he told Variety in his subsequent interview, the birth of the Force. I just see this opening to make kind of a Ben-Hur movie. The Force has become a kind of religious legend that spans through all these movies. But where did it come from? How is it found? Who found it? Who was the first Jedi? And that's what I'm writing now. So, Laura, that's a heavy, heavy expectation to put on a film like this. Both of those films, by the way, led by the great Charlton Heston, however your feelings are about him, but led by Charlton Heston. One of those films won Best Picture. That's Ben-Hur. So really putting a lot of weight and expectation on a film like this, connecting it with religion, which we've all kind of connected the Force to already, but having it so blatantly connected to religion is an interesting decision. What do you think about these comments from James Mangold?
I mean, I think it's really interesting. I'm excited about this prospect of going back this far to the point where he kind of makes it sound like this isn't necessarily going to be about Jedi. It's going to be about these like people who are the first to wield the Force. Like they weren't known as Jedi yet at this point. So we're just gonna we're going way back to the beginning. And the fact that he uses the word, I think, biblical to sort of describe how this is going to be, like this is a very promising story premise. It kind of seems like this is very far out. So I wonder how many of these ideas that he's actually talking about are going to stick and end up in the final product. I mean, especially we just learned that all of these movie release dates got pushed back yet again. I mean, I think the Rey movie is supposed to be first, then it's the Dave Filoni movie, and then it's maybe this question mark. Not sure where Texas movie's falling in with this. So everything that we're reading and hearing now could 100% change. But I do like this idea that he's going back this far, I think, as sort of a strategy. He wants to not be so married to the lore and all of what we know now, so that he can create his own thing, which I think is a very logical way to go about it. There was an interview not too long ago, I think, with Andrew Stanton talking about working on I don't know if it was Kenobi or if it was Andor, but sort of talking about how you almost, I don't think he used the word strangled, but that was kind of the implication where like you have to really stick to it's so important that you stick to what's already established in this canon. And for a writer or for a creative, that can be sort of difficult to work around, which might be why we've seen quite a few creatives eventually step away from Lucasfilm and from the Star Wars projects that they originally assigned to. So hopefully that it doesn't end up being the case here, because this premise alone of sort of exploring what it was like when the Force was first discovered is really interesting and really promising.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about that in a little bit with that Burn It Down excerpt, but certainly the idea of creatives being involved, executives being involved, being attached to all these different things that you have to adhere to because people have laid out mythology and canon and lore that you have to honor. Kevin, I have a little bit of feelings. Feels like Star Trek Discovery, I think season 3, season 4, when they jump like 1,000 years into the future and we're like, yeah, we're not tied to anything here. And now if we're starting from the beginning here, do we maybe have the Jedi being named by a descendant or an ancestor of Drod Munbrin? Is that how we're going to get the name? So like he named Solo, will he name the Jedi by accident and say Jedi maybe? Like what do you anticipate from a film like this from James Mangold? Does this excite you or does this worry you because people aren't going to let go of canon and lore and still judge his film through that prism?
Hot prediction. The first Jedi's name is actually Jed, and a bad guy is going to be like, Jed, die! And
Oh,
Jed's
I got
it.
it.
Ooh, I like that. And then they'll force push him off a cliff. And the first scene of that movie is going to be like a close shot, and you'll think it's like a giant boulder, but then it zooms out, and it's just this little pebble, and you'll see a little kid's finger, and he'll look at it, and he'll kind of nudge it up like a couple inches away, and then the pebble will kind of knock off, and then it will be whatever the name of the movie is, Foundations of the Force. You heard it here first.
Ooh, I like
That's
that.
a spoiler alert. I'm excited when I hear Ben-Hur and all the biblical epics, you know. I would have been more excited about something where it was established, you know, like it's going to be interesting, right? I'm curious how the audience will think of it. Because like people like familiarity, right? People, when you venture off, you know, I mean, you don't want to be too familiar because everybody was giving crap to The Force Awakens about that. But then if you venture too far off, everybody was hating Phantom Menace originally for that. But I think people are ready for a fresh take. So if we're talking like, you know, it's, you know, we'll have a pod race, but it will be with actual animals pulling the pods. That'll be great. But I'm excited for it. I used to love those, you know, what they call them, the sand and sandals epics. So I feel like he's going to make one of those. In the Star Wars universe. So I'm excited. And I haven't seen Indy. You have, Rocha. So jealous. I would throw it back to you.
Yeah.
With your new eyes, having seen Indy 4 without spoiling it, Indy 5, are you excited about what he can be doing with this premise?
Yeah, I tell you this, I was very, very pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed the new Indiana Jones movie. That's what I'll say, because I like Mangold as a director. I enjoyed Logan. Logan is my #1 favorite comic book or superhero movie, period. It probably will never be touched. It is just that good. And I've enjoyed his projects in the past for the most part. Now this idea of him taking over Star Wars is very curious and very interesting, rather. And I like what he did with the Indiana Jones situation, mixing in the old with the new. That idea here with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Harrison Ford, he actually made it work. The chemistry was there, the dialogue was there, and the connection was there. So I'm very curious to see him wanting to step up to the next level. This reminds me of Denis Villeneuve. Remember when we started, it was like those smaller films, Prisoners, then Sicario, and then bang, it's Dune and Arrival and all these massive things. So it may be that Mangold wants his shot at a big screen epic. And what franchise has not had really this massive big screen epic? It is Star Wars. And so I would love to see that happen. But I mean, that also feels like it's going to be a 3-hour film because 10 Commandments is 3 hours. Ben-Hur is 3 hours. So are we looking at a 3-hour Star Wars epic Genesis of the Force type film.
That's
It's
a
gotta
good
be
title
realistic.
too. Genesis of the Force.
Genesis of the
Yep.
Force, yeah. Somebody who used the Force to roll the boulder off. I don't know. There's a lot of questions here I have in my mind, but I'm concerned about it. But I like that it's bold and it's different and it's new, and he's not going to be tied to the lore necessarily. So hopefully he'll have a little more freedom to do what he wants to do for sure. Well, let's move on to another story here, and this one's dealing with Andor. Let's move on to Andor here, talking about dark and bold here. Andor season 2 is on its way. Kino Loy, of course, a fantastic character everybody loved out of season 2, played by the wonderful Andy Serkis. We heard that he was going to come back. He revealed that he's going to come back in season 2, and what we're being teased that he's going to have a significant role to play in season 2 is what a lot of the rumors are saying. And he's got an interesting take on what he did with the character of Kino Loy that may be teasing what we're going to see from him in season 2. He was talking to the Hollywood Reporter, and he shared new details about the backstory of his character. He said that Kino is, quote, someone who had a family, was a firebrand union shop steward that usually would stand up for workers' rights, but he was beaten down and silenced by Narkina 5. Tony Gilroy highlighted the moment Loy told Diego Luna's Cassian Andor that there were, quote, never more than 12 guards on each floor, which came after Andor's repeated attempts to convince Loy to go along with the breakout plan. And he highlighted how organic that moment felt for him. The really great lines are ones that feel like they're organically there and you love them, but you don't feel like the writer is there too. That one was casual and strong. And he's talked about filming these scenes and the desensitization. Oh, well, clarify that. That he felt they're all walking around in these paper suits and bare feet, week in, week out, losing your identity more and more, which helped him to dive into this situation. So, Kevin, I go to you. Do you like this backstory that he's creating for him? Does this herald perhaps a new Kino Loy that's going to be more bold, less beaten now that he's out of Narkina 5, now that he's maybe getting back in touch with who he was before, leading these protests, leading these union fights, which of course kind of mirrors a little bit what's going on now with the DGA and the SAG and WGA. So what do you think about this? Do you like this backstory for Kino?
I think it's all smoke and mirrors until we find out that he was actually Snoke. Let's be honest. So all of this, it's more Andrew Garfield saying, "I'm not in Spider-Man No Way Home." Now, anytime you get backstory added to a character you like, it's good and exciting. I kind of liked not knowing a lot about him, So I thought that he played his part well. Also think it would be an epic ending that he doesn't swim or you never know what happens to him. So I always get, but I'm always one for more Star Wars content. So I'm curious to see what they do, but it's got to tie into Andor, right? Like all paths will cross, right? So like, why else are we going back to him in a show called Andor? So that's what I would be most curious about, how they're going to explore that. You know what I mean? Especially, are they going to have a full episode or is a full backstory on Kino?
Especially with time jumps, right? We're going multiple years over those 3 episodes, right?
Yeah.
Laura, what do you think about this? What do you think about the backstory here? Every actor worth their salt creates backstories for their characters if it's not in the script. I remember that's one of the things they taught you in acting class, is that if you get a character, you got to write this whole thing of creating like a notebook full of stories. You can bring a lot of levels to your performance here. Do you think this is more just him kind of giving an idea of that he worked on as an actor, or is this maybe teasing the role he might be playing here in at least one of the 3 episode sections of season 2?
I mean, I think that this is a very logical backstory for this character. I think it makes a lot of sense. So it would make a lot of sense for them to stick with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have to dive a little bit deeper into this character if they're going to bring him back as much as we seem to be hearing that he's rumored to be back. I really do hope that with all of these comments that Tony Gilroy and that Andy Serkis have been making, that this isn't just baiting. I hope he actually is in it a decent amount. I mean, this character was such a fan favorite that I sincerely hope that we get more of him and get more of his backstory. But I mean, I think Kevin has a valid concern there, where the show is called Andor and we need to focus on his story. And we only have, 3-4 episodes in these blocks to do it to cover an entire year period before we move on to the next year period. So that's not a lot of time to be branching off and exploring these other characters. You know,
Yeah.
not as much time as we had in the first season, where we had 12 whole episodes in 1 year that we had to span. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how much he actually does show up. But I like the idea that he was like this union leader, and he was this guy that stood up for the little guy, and the fact that he was beaten down so hard to where he ended up in Narkina 5. I mean, that's tragic. And that storyline was just, as much, I've talked about my feelings on Andor, but that prison storyline was like, that was top tier Star Wars storytelling. I legitimately enjoyed it. So the fact that you're going to go back and revisit that is great.
Yeah.
And in a vacuum, it's like such a cool, like, short story. It would have been a great, like, tales of, you know, from the old novels. I also predict that he's going to find one of those, in a flashback, we'll know he found one of those breath masks.
Breathers?
From,
that the Jedi used.
Is that the name, Schmodown? You know, is it breather? I don't know what.
They're A99, Aqua 99, breathe it, rebreathe. I don't know what it is.
That's why that's why I rely on you on that. So he's going to have that. Then he's going to jump off, sink to the bottom, and then just walk on the bottom of the sea until he gets up into land. And then that's how we live.
And somehow the pressure at the bottom of the seafloor doesn't kill him.
I do apologize. Yeah, I do apologize to all the fans that I'm spoiling a lot of these shows.
With your predictions.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's great to do this and have the backstory there. And I think he is maybe hinting at something down the road. I mean, it may be that he is not necessarily a part of Andor's story anymore, but they do run into each other because he has maybe taken inspiration from Andor, and he is leading his own people, or a crew of his own people maybe, who have gotten away from the situation. We may see him go back to his hometown, hook up with some folks, see the Empire, and like launch his own rebellion. And then maybe his crew and Andor's crew meet up in a common purpose, common goal. That could be interesting for sure. Because I don't know if I want him to just come back and hang out with him for 3 episodes and be his buddy and then get killed, which gives him more inspiration to do what he's doing. I think it would be more powerful, especially something like Andy Serkis, to give him inspiration from Andor to refine his desire to fight the Empire and grab a crew together and go on missions themselves. But Laura, you might be right. Maybe we're distracting things, but I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Wait, what if he gets his own spinoff? What if like whatever they do in season 2 leads to like even more? I mean, this character, I feel like it's there. I feel like the option could be there.
Yeah.
Potentially, depending on what they do in season 2.
I think of all the characters. Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
I dig it.
Yeah.
Spinoff?
Come on.
Snoke, a Star Wars story? That's what you're saying?
Jesus Christ.
That's going to be great. Yeah, I mean, I think anyone's up for spinoffs.
Right.
You know, it's just, it would be funny if they announce it and you're just like, oh man, they keep announcing things. You're ready to see things.
Yeah, I know. And with these strikes going on, it's just kind of like, oh,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you're whetting the appetite just for us to be waiting around for this stuff down the road. We shall see what happens next for sure. Well, let's move on to Star Wars Outlaws. This trailer dropped earlier this week, I think. Yeah, earlier this week. And then also a 10-minute and 40-second gameplay trailer drop, which I did a reaction video to because I'd missed the trailer dropping. And I watched along and just was so blown away by this game. Look, I'm the Outlaw. How am I not going to watch a Star Wars Outlaws gameplay trailer? But it was really fascinating, the world that they were creating here, what we got to see here, and the actions taken here with these new characters, and then a new sidekick there, Nyx, being voiced by, I think, Humberly, is it Gonzalez or Rodriguez? I'm sorry, a Latina actress, having her voice the main character, Cat Bass, which I think was really cool. Seeing her hooking up with a droid herself, kind of shades of Rogue One in that way as well. And this is set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So, Laura, did you have a chance to watch this trailer and the gameplay? What did you take away from this overall, and what is it opening up possibly canon-wise in Star Wars?
Oh, I am not a gamer, so I did watch the trailer like once, but this is just not my thing. So I did not watch the gameplay. I have no extra insight beyond that is one very cute furry little creature, whatever it is, that's running around with her, and that is a weirdly attractive droid that's wearing that trench coat. So I can't explain it. It's something, there's something there, but I look forward to seeing more of the gameplay and seeing more of these characters' backstories. But to be honest, I can't commit to playing the game. I won't.
Kevin, ND5 is the droid. Would Laura be Laura 5? Laura, like, would you take the last name, Laura? Would it be -5? Laura, ND5, like what would be the deal if you actually landed a droid here? I'm very curious to see.
I ship it like you ship Din Djarin and Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
What's the name though?
It's gotta be. The name I haven't thought about too much. I'm curious how tall he is. I have a height requirement. I'm very tall, but I'm assuming that this droid is also very tall. He looks tall.
He does.
I feel like
it's hard to tell on camera.
It's harder for a guy to he'll have to wear like high heels, but like with a droid, he could probably just be like, all right, I'll just replace these legs with taller legs. And
right?
Believe me, in high school, I was always wishing I could do that. You know what I mean? Do it.
It's gonna be a beautiful union.
So I want the trailer's fine, but to me it was like, oh, this looks like Jedi Survivor almost, like same game, not same gameplay, but I dug the character. I dug her hair. It reminded me of Ripley from Alien.
Yeah, I could see
the original Alien, that like old school kind of haircut, which I like because when you're in the original trilogy, I always like when they give people that like 70s look, like you know what I mean. Where they kind of get like when Anakin had like the bigger hair in episode 3 and stuff like that. So I always like when they try to match up with like they should kind of look 70s style because the original trilogy, like if you're gonna do people's hair. So I dug her hair. The little creature is cute. I just laugh. It seems like every video game they have to have a little creature or something. It's like with
companion.
In Survivor, which I do love that droid, but it's just like, you could tell this is going to be clearly another thing. It's going to use the same device, probably helping you out and stuff like that. So, man, it's cute. Let me tell you that. It's damn cute.
Yeah.
But I wasn't too sold on the trailer. I was like, cool. Because I'm kind of halfway. Like, I'm not a gamer. Like, I don't sit and play. Because when I try to play a game, then my daughter comes in and then wants to play Paw Patrol. So, like, I have to limit my time. But
kids, man.
When I watch the gameplay footage, that's a different story. Because and you should see it, Laura, just because it's cool where you see the depth of like how you can go from the planet side into a ship, leave the planet into a completely different thing, and it's all without loading time and stuff like that. That's really cool, and it's very much gave me shades of Grand Theft Auto, which was dope.
Okay,
right. So I was pretty stoked when I saw it. As far as the capabilities of that, will I buy it? Probably. Will I play more than 15 minutes of it before my daughter comes in and says, let's play Peppa Pig? Probably not. But I'll try to give it the old college try. But I'm excited for it. I know some people are hating on it. I don't understand why people hate on things that like they don't know anything about. It looks cool. It's great. It's a Star Wars game. You could leave the planet, fly out of the planet into a freaking asteroid field or whatever.
Yeah, it was cool.
In real time.
Yeah. And seeing just a random TIE fighter wing just leaning against the wall in that factory was just such a cool moment for me. And then seeing the different environments that she's involved in, interacting with the Empire soldiers in that scene or Empire commander in that scene, what she's got going on there, and then where she ends up on that hyperdrive on the ship and everything she's got going on. So there's a lot here that looked like a lot of fun. And look, I'm going to say this again, Umberly Gonzalez, she is the voice. Having yet another Latina being part of Star Wars when for so long we weren't part of sci-fi, it is great to see more and more of our voice in the Star Wars franchise and in this way. And she's an accomplished actress, been in a number of things, certainly a well-known act, 288,000 followers on Instagram. So it's a smart choice to bring attention for your game. You get a good actress, you get an actress with a following. This puts eyes on the game itself. Plus, you add a little sidekick that looks like fun, who's going to be part of the game, and also that droid. It looks pretty badass. I agree with. I don't want to sleep with him, but certainly I think the droid looks pretty awesome in my opinion. So I like the choice to add that kind of droid. A little KTSO vibes, a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, which then, to be fair, is HK-47 vibes. Here's the thing I worry about. HK-47 is the original badass droid who would literally say things to you like, hey, I would much rather slaughter the inhabitants of this ship for you, master. Like, he was a crazy, delusional 3PO with assassin protocols. And every new droid they have that's not HK-47, when that remake finally gets done in 2029, they'll be like, oh, HK is just a rehash of K2SO. No, HK is the original badass droid. Sorry.
Wait, where's HK from? Where's
KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
Got it. Okay, I should have
known Christopher Taberi, and he would always open with he'd be like, if he's talking to you, he'd be like, statement, and blah, 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 blah. There he is. If he had a question for you, he'd be like, question. But everything he would always lean to, he was like, what would you do? I'd like to grenade these people, master. Like, just crazy, just over the top. You're like, and even in KOTOR and in my movies, I would always have him say, HK, you really have problems. And he'd be like, thank you. I'm a fan of my work too. Like, he's just crazy. So one day he'll get his love in the sun. And the voice acting is great on it too. But I digress. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Didn't mean to rant in my maroon shirt here. Look at our outfits, our uniforms.
There's always time for your KOTOR love, for sure. For sure, Kevin. All right, so so we'll keep our eyes out for Star Wars Outlaws. I'm certainly going to buy it. I'm going to crack the seal on Jedi Survivor at some point in the next couple of weeks and play it on Twitch. So I'll add Outlaws to the mix once it actually comes out, because I really liked a lot of what we saw here in the world building that you saw within the 10 minutes.
And that name is right up your alley, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? I thought of you immediately.
Me too. I actually went to his Twitter to look and see if he was going to say something like, hey, it's called the Outlaws. I'm in or something. And he didn't do anything like that. He disappointed me.
I did. When I tweeted out my watch along, I said,
right when the news broke, I was looking for you, pal.
Enough. Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll jump into some more news stories from the world of Star Wars right after this. All right, Kevin, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Let's talk about this Burn It Down book that's come out here from Maureen Ryan, talking about behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on in Lucasfilm. For those you don't know, it's a book that got a lot of attention because of a Vanity Fair excerpt from the book that was in that magazine. Maureen Ryan writes for that magazine, showcasing all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes at Lost, the show Lost, with Harold Perrineau and Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof and all of that. But there's also a section, by the way, I have the book right behind me on my green screen waiting for me to read this weekend. And one of the sections of the book here talks about Lucasfilm and the behind the scenes. And there are people there that she spoke to who are sources. She gives different names to the sources, but she talks about how some of the Emma source, that's her pseudonym, Emma, says the work environment at Lucasfilm was generally professional and appropriate, but she started working with, quote, Derek, another pseudonym, and subsequently leaving a Star Wars spin-off show. And there's been some online speculation that Derek might be Dave Filoni. Emma says that the general attitude is that the executives running the IP apparently know better than the writers or anyone else. She even describes one interaction with a Lucasfilm executive saying their decision making was being done because simply, well, I'm the showrunner, not the actual showrunner. Me as the executive is the showrunner. And she also talks about executive who also identifies as a showrunner and some of the speculation here, the executive who identifies as a showrunner can possibly only apply to one person. That's Filoni. And she also acknowledges that these execs are entitled to run things how they like. But she questions, quote, how many decisions are made to create the best story and how many are driven by other considerations like servicing the next movie or TV series coming off the factory line. Another person on this, Christopher, who is also a pseudonym for one of her sources, said that on one of the Lucasfilm shows, Christopher described how, quote, the folks who were in the trenches, the script coordinators and the writers' assistants, they never really spoke to the showrunner. When writers made revisions addressing producer and director notes, those changes would get sent to the producers and the first AD, bypassing the showrunner in the production process entirely. A recurring issue in this novel is that creatives who succeed are eventually promoted in positions where they are required to manage people, but they are giving no proper management training. And there's more in there as well. You go to Screen Rant, or you can buy the book that's available now on Amazon if you all want to get the full story and read everything that she had gotten from these sources. So, Kevin, what does this make you feel? Does this feel like standard studio stuff? She also talked about that diversity is an issue with Star Wars behind the scenes because, yes, the casting has been more diverse, but it's still generally white men running everything, including Ahsoka, which is about to come out with Dave Filoni. And a lot of people say, well, that's unique. But then every situation somehow is seen to be unique that leads back to a white man running things. So there was a lot of that conversation as well. So do you think this is standard practice for all the studios, or do you think this kind of speaks to the issues that have been plaguing some of these Star Wars shows and the Star Wars movies since the advent of Kathleen Kennedy's time in charge? And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Kathleen Kennedy, just saying.
Well, look, we got it's tough. I just like that Derek is Filoni, or they're saying that, like, Derek
There's a rumor.
Is the name. Like, they're not even trying. Same first letter. Hold on real quick. We got a special guest. He's gonna say hi real quick.
You know, it's been a long time.
Oh,
It's been a long time since I've seen these two beautiful people. But I got a hot take, John. I'm not
Bring it.
playing. I came with a hot take. am I the only person who thinks the Knights of Ren were just underutilized in the franchise? I mean, they gave them a flashback at best. In a perfect world, we get to see Lakeith Stansfield and Ben Foster play Knights of Ren.
Ooh,
Who doesn't want to see that nasty team up?
that's a great casting choice.
I'm going to say goodbye, but that's just my hot take.
No, I love the hot take.
I love you guys. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for popping
Bye,
in.
Kaiser.
The Knights of Kaiser.
That could have been a next season of Shimoda, Knights of Kaiser. That would have been
Knights of Kaiser. Yeah, look, the Dave Filoni thing, like, again, the ultimate yes man atmosphere was back when it was just George only.
Oh, true.
Like, right? A lot of people
Very
were
true.
like, he would just walk and just put his stamp on yes and no and yes and no. And they would always say that McCallum was the ultimate yes guy, like whatever George wanted. And that's why, no one warned him about that people would not like, I don't like sand lines and stuff like that. So, does that excuse what the environment is now? But unfortunately, and we've talked about this before. I've worked in the industry. Like this is how it is. Like sometimes I feel like I'm slaving away and busting my butt to line the pockets of producers, and they're the one. You know what I mean? Like, and you're doing all this hard work, and they're on a yacht, and in Avalon, and I'm sitting here in the edit bay still slaving away. So wrong use of term, but what I mean, just working hard. Like they always say, like, oh, like slave driver, our boss is slave driver. But
Sure.
just the what I would just say for this situation is I would hope that some of these things aren't true, and I know that they need to sell books, right? So I don't imagine Filoni saying something like, "Oh, I'm the showrunner, so what I say goes." But you never know anyone, right? We never know anyone in this day and age. So I like to see the best in people, and I hope that that's not true. And I think that the best ideas that serve the story is what people should do. But unfortunately, that's not how Hollywood works. They're thinking about toys. They're thinking about the Disney Plus shows, like that article said. So it's kind of a bummer,
Yeah, Laura, how you feel about this? Does this kind of take a little bit of the shine off stuff that you enjoyed here? Or does this sound like standard Hollywood stuff and we should all just kind of grow up and accept it, that it's a hard town, it's a tough town, and yes, that feelings sometimes get trampled in the pursuit of trying to get things done, get things out there with the demand from the fans and the schedule that Lucasfilm has laid out?
Yeah, so I'm actually reading this book right now, and this is about where I'm stopped. This is a lot of the Lucasfilm stuff is from chapter 8 of this book, and when it comes to what's standard and what's not, I truly don't know. But from what I've garnered from this book, this is definitely standard stuff. This author goes into really descriptive detail about how things went down on the show Sleepy Hollow. That's a giant section of this book, talks about how horrific it sounds like it was there. We've all read about what it was like working at Lost. And to be honest, like one of the things that gives me a lot of relief is that this chapter sort of starts with the environment at Lucasfilm was generally professional and appropriate. I'm like, oh, thank God, at least we get something. So I can at least appreciate that. But it sounds like this is a lot of run-of-the-mill stuff that you've got executives that are in charge, and they're putting their foot down on all of the creative decisions. And I think that is tough as that probably is to take if you're the person on the other side of that table. It sounds like, unfortunately, this is just the way that it goes. And I imagine at a big place like Disney and at Lucasfilm, and this chapter has a lot of Marvel anecdotes in it as well. That's even more probably the case. I mean, if you look up I spent a lot of time actually doing some detective work on this, trying to figure out who's who. I'm like pulling up like all the Lucasfilm executives. I was like, who of these people have worked as showrunners? And it's like literally just Filoni. So I don't know. It's also not 100% clear that like this anecdote that she's talking about, the showrunner who's an executive having this conversation with her, it's not clear if that same person is Derek or if this is a different story about a different person. They're kind of different parts of this chapter in this book. But yeah, this was wildly interesting stuff. I mean, there's also big sections of it talking about how Lucasfilm doesn't seem to have any qualms against going over budget.
Yes.
When she was working on whatever spinoff she was working on, this Emma person, they were already double over what their budget was supposed to be, and she left before they were done. So that they kept going, kept spending more money, and it was even worse. So yeah, I would love to sit down and actually spend some more time trying to figure out what this is about. I mean, the author of the book talks about how most of these interviews took place in like 2021, 2022, but not all of them. and trying to figure out like what was in development at that time and what wasn't. I'm just like, it's a real fun puzzle to sit down and try and solve. But a lot of people on Reddit I think are pretty far ahead of me, and that's where I think a lot of these theories about who's who are coming from. But yeah, this is. I'll be curious to finish the book. I think I'm only about halfway, maybe a third of the way through it at the moment, but it's fascinating.
Is it largely a positive book, or is it just like railroading everybody the whole time?
No, and I wouldn't say it's railroading people, but it is. I wouldn't say it's a positive book by any means. No, most of these stories that I've read so far are examples of how bad it really can get.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say this all the time, you know, the delusion people have about Hollywood is just because they create these movies about everybody working together and, you know, not judging people by their race or sex or orientation or gender identity or whatever. That's all fine for the content of the movies. But behind the scenes, it can be quite brutal, quite cutthroat and bloodthirsty. And as we're seeing now, the writers more and more getting disenfranchised. And that's something she talks about as well in this section about this, how this is being done so they can streamline the writers out of the process. And that's essentially what they're trying to do, as you see now why the writers are pushing back like they are now with the 7 weeks of strikes over the contract. So you're seeing that here. So it's sadly not surprising. The mouse is no joke. And it is a very powerful place, and you see what can happen if you work there. But hopefully, you know, but I think this also exposes why we've seen like things that cross purposes, things that kind of slam into each other chronologically or timeline wise or lore wise, because you don't have one voice completely 100% in charge of all of it. And you're having to rely on who's in charge, who's not in charge. Oh, these notes, I don't take them to the showrunner. I just implement them without telling the showrunner. Then the showrunner's got to defend them. You know, it makes me kind of brings to mind the Jon Favreau thing, defending a Mandalorian showing up in Boba Fett. And so there's just these kinds of things that as you're watching or you're reading this, that you can cast connections to. And certainly, as you said, Laura, the double the budget, clearly didn't have an issue with it because they scrapped 80-90% of that Solo movie and just reshot it completely with a new director. So clearly they think that Star Wars is their cash cow. As big as Avatar was, Star Wars is still their cash cow along with Marvel. So yeah, interesting stuff for sure. I think we're at the section of the show now where Kevin's got some things to say. There was a big rumor that rolled through this week here in the world of Star Wars fandom, and it was about George Lucas possibly coming back to buy Star Wars back from Disney. The same nerd boys, nerd girls, let's be fair, nerd boys and nerd girls who ran George Lucas out of his own franchise now would welcome him like a returning king back to rule the franchise. But Kevin, what are your thoughts on this rumor? A lot of people saying it's bullshit. Other people saying it's absolutely going to happen behind the scenes. What are your thoughts? And we just saw George at the premiere for Indiana Jones 5, taking pictures with everybody there in the after party. So thoughts on this, Kel?
It's more likely that Kino Loy is Snoke than that Lucas is buying back Star Wars. It's more likely that Laura's going to read the Plagueis novel before George Lucas buys back Star Wars.
There it is.
I don't know. I wanted to bring it up because I know we don't want to fan the flames of like stupid lies and rumors. And there are people online who will remain nameless that live and die by clickbait. I'm talking clickbait like George Lucas reshooting the sequel trilogy. Click here. And for true people in the community, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't like to give credence to that. But I want to know how I brought it up to the Jedi Way, our thread, because I'm like, how does something like that leak? How does something like that, unless I'm way off and it's happening, like how does something like that get such attention to where people are like really buying into it? And again, you're right. It's like you ran him out. He literally sold it because he was like, I would rather make independent films where people aren't judging me and hating on everything. Like you, the fans a lot, not you. I don't feel like the listeners on our show are way cool. Like, the toxic fans out there made the creator of the saga want to walk away from it. Like, and now they're like you said, welcoming him back. Like, please save it because they don't like what Disney did to their heroes. It's like, I don't know. What's he going to buy it back for? Why? Like, what's he going to do? Like, I feel like he's enjoying his retirement. He gets to go to Indiana Jones premieres. Did you sit next to him, Rocha? Were you near him?
No, I wasn't at the premiere. I don't like to go to premieres. It's too much of a to-do, too much of a hassle. I don't like to wear a suit to go see a movie. So no thanks. I was happy at the Disney lot, hanging out with Shannon McClung, fellow geek buddy, in my sweatpants watching.
I feel like I'd be the same. Like my favorite thing about like opening night, like actually saw it one day earlier. I got to see The Flash, but like I got like for that I'll get popcorn and candy and like sodas. But like when I would get invited to premieres and special screenings through the Editors Guild, like there's no snacks. They just give you like the tiny little bottle of water that you get at like craft service, and it's so depressing. You're just sitting here. I remember I had already seen Man of Steel, but the second time I saw first time I saw Man of Steel, I didn't get to have my popcorn and opening night thing. In 2013, I had to sit at the Academy with a small little bottle of water and be on my best behavior. So I'm going to say, Rocha, like I probably wouldn't want to wear a suit and worry about what I look like and then worry about.
It's a young man's game. Premieres are for the young people. And I respect everybody who goes to the premieres. If I'm not an executive, I'm not going. It's too exhausting. The after party is long. I get you. I get it. Helps your social media take pictures with all the stars. Yeah. I totally get it. I'm not denigrating at all. It's exhausting to me. And
it's buying back Star Wars. I guess I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to see, like, what do our fans think? Sound off in the comments. I'm curious. Like, when you guys come across rumors like this, do you like believe it? I think it's fun. I always like the buildup and the rumors and like reading spoiler reports, set reports. I've always liked that. Back in the day, I remember hearing when NSYNC was on set for Attack of the Clones and they were going to be Jedi. That's a true story. In 2001, I was working at the gym at San Diego State. And on the Force.net, they were like, dude, the members of the NSYNC was there for some great Jedi scene. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. So, but like this thing is just ridiculous. I feel like I wanted to get your guys' opinions on it. Do you think it's ridiculous? Do you believe it? What would he do? What would he like? To what end? Why? I just feel like he doesn't want all that business. He's fine. Yeah. You know,
Laura, what do you think about it?
If I had $4 billion, I would not work or do anything even close to work ever again for the rest of my life. I mean, like, the man got $4 billion from Disney to get rights to Star Wars. Why and what motivation could he possibly have to come back? Honestly, like it's hysterical that these things come up. I mean, it's like if it's not this, it's Jon Favreau's quitting The Mandalorian. Kathleen Kennedy's getting fired. Bob Iger wants to fire everybody working on them. Like it's just sensationalism at its finest. I'm not buying into any of it, and I like to think that our viewers are smart enough to not buy into it either. But sure, you're right. It is amusing to read these things.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of the fact that there's not much going on Star Wars wise because there's no show. There's not yet. I mean, August is when we're going to get Ahsoka. And of course, there was a new trailer and they announced the release date for it. And certainly we'll have conversations about how we're going to review it on the show. So, but like that's the situation there. It's kind of this gap area right now, right? And so it's like, what can you fill it with? Someone starts something because they want clicks, they want likes on their tweet, and then it gets a response. Reddit goes insane about it. People start claiming they've got sources that they don't have. And, you know, the thing is about this is the whole cottage industry, right? You got to understand how to drop these scoops, and you got to actually vet. Like Snyder on the hot mic, he vets it through multiple sources before he drops a scoop because his credibility is on the line. But if you've got like 1,000 followers on Twitter and you drop something, it's not that big of a deal that you look like a fool because you only have 1,000 followers. Your career isn't dependent on you being right more often than not. So, but it's a way of building your credibility. But some people don't care about it. They're just going to drop this thing and they word it so it sounds somewhat believable. So there's a craftsmanship in that because I don't think people would latch onto it if they didn't actually sound believable to them that it could possibly happen. Like Lloyd saying, you know, so you're saying there's a chance. So it's essentially that kind of situation. So I understand that, right? But at the end of the day, yes, I agree with you, Laura. I don't think George wants to come back and do anything up other than maybe directing a series or maybe directing a film or maybe coming in and doing an episode, which would be awesome.
That would be great.
Right? An episode of Andor directed by George Lucas would have been fantastic. But going forward, where else will he go? That would be interesting. If you're going to bring back Kenobi, having him direct a Kenobi episode with Hayden and all of that would be so much fun. But I think that's the extent of it because also he's way older now than he was when he sold it. It's been a while. And as you get older, man, the desire to be on a set and do all that stuff, Scorsese is the rarity. Scorsese is the rarity. And not a lot of people at that age want to keep doing it. I think he enjoys other people taking shit for it. and sitting back and just counting his money in his flannels and acid wash jeans and sneakers. And I think
have you guys seen the George Lucas cut of the Force Awakens trailer?
Yes.
Oh God.
Oh,
no,
man.
but I will
Google
have
it.
to watch it as soon as we're done here.
It is funny because I was just thinking Andor. They should do it with Andor, like the original spot where it's just the desert, and then like John Boyega pops up and he's looking around all nervous. But like it starts with that, but there's 50 CGI ships, a giant Ronto rocks in front, a Dubak, and it's like, and then the final shot with the Falcon where it's against the 2 TIE fighters or whatever. They added like 50 TIE fighters, and they just took the trailer, the Force Awakens teaser trailer, and added 50,000 CGIs to everything. And so you're talking about that with Andor, and I'm like, dude, they need to do an Andor George Lucas episode where it's just ridiculous. But yeah,
he ends up at Dexter Jetzer's. He's in there at the diner, hanging out with Dexter there. Oh, yeah, hilarious. All right, well there you go. Let's finish with one last conversation here about some Comic-Con stuff coming up here in San Diego. We are just weeks away from it in July, less than a month, I think, or just about a month as the date is. Right? Yeah, Kevin is pointing to where it will be because he lives downtown. I will definitely be going for some days, but I'm driving in and driving back out every night for a Comic-Con. It's a joy there, but I will be there. But there is some stuff going on. They've announced some panels here. Rise of the Red Blade is going to have a panel on its own. Laura, are you hearing about any other panels that we should watch out for at Comic-Con here with the Star Wars content?
There's not a whole lot that I've heard about yet. I don't know if the full schedule, I guess this full schedule is out. From what I saw, it looks like there's going to be a full publishing panel. And the one time that I went to Comic-Con, the publishing panel was like the best day ever. It was so fun for me. And now that was like the only Star Wars content that there was at Comic-Con that year. So I was kind of grasping at anything I could get. But that was really thrilling. There were some new reveals that came out about new books. There were some great announcements. But the fact that there's also going to be a Rise of the Red Blade like panel and that they're going to get, there's also a special edition. There's going to be an edition of Rise of the Red Blade that comes out. I think there's like a new poster or a new cover art or something. The cover art that they released the image of today, or maybe it was yesterday, just looks fantastic. I'm not very far into this book yet, where we've got our advanced reviewer copies, but I haven't had a chance to break into it too much yet. But this will be really exciting, I think, to hopefully hear what some of the new announcements are. If you're into Star Wars reading, that is one day to sit and pay attention to what news is coming out of social media, because surely there will be somebody there live tweeting the entire thing and all of the announcements that come along with it.
Yeah, I'm going to be very curious, Kevin, to see what happens, because, I mean, if the strike is still going on a month from now, how many of those writers, actors, directors, producers, I think the producers probably could go, but like how many of them will not show up at Comic-Con? And then it'll be just, the producers or the executives sitting there pitching these shows and showing footage. But how much footage will they have to show if they're not shooting stuff? So what would you want to see, but what do you anticipate might be happening here for Star Wars content at Comic-Con?
I don't know how it's going to be interesting at Comic-Con with the specter of the looming overhead. You can't really ignore that. And that's going to be an elephant in the room for all those panels and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to see. So they haven't really announced too many things, just the publishing panel you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Star Wars, they know their deal is with D23 anyway, right? And
they kind of know their lane.
Yeah. And I think that, I think Disney too, being in control of Star Wars, is like, look, it's Comic-Con. This is where we're going to shine our MCU stars. D23, the Star Wars, that's more Star Wars centric. So I don't think we're going to get too much out of that, right? I think the big thing will be like the Fantastic Four cast, probably, right? Like that's what everybody's harping over right now. So that's interesting though, about the publishing panel. I bet that would be fun too, to like go and see.
I think the biggest thing that's happened at Comic-Con for Star Wars in recent years was that announcement of the season 7 of the Clone Wars, that they're bringing it back. And ever since then, I think I've kind of always been expecting there would be something big that would be announced there again. And it's yet to happen. Yeah.
So it's much more of a subdued approach lately than years in the past. And as you said, D23, that's really where they like to do that. And of course, with Star Wars Celebration just having wrapped up, although it may feel like
Celebration too. I keep saying D23, but you're right. It's the Celebration. Oops, sorry.
Oh, sounds
Sorry.
like that's our alarm to end the show. Okay, well, there you go. Well, that's our
And then-
thoughts
Yeah.
for this episode of the Jedi Way. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it madly. Every time we put a show up, you all's comments are fantastic. Your points of views are great. Please remember to like this video, share it on your social media, subscribe to the channel right now, and hit that bell button so you see when we're dropping our Star Wars episodes of the Jedi Way here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Kevin, another fun show. Please let people know where they can find you, brother.
At Kev Smets right down there, and at www.Revan Trilogy. If you want to find out more about HK-47, the original OG droid, let me tell you something, Laura. HK-47 takes you out, and maybe you're gonna be more interested in that droid than the other one, right? He's good looking too. It's a good couple of days. I don't know if he wears a coat though. I think the other thing about the coat that was really cool in the trailer. He wears a coat, so
It's a thing. Yeah.
I feel like HK-47 would be on The Idol, the new show there on HBO, rather than someone you want to go out with.
Also,
Laura,
and let the record state, I'm trying to set my friend Laura up with a homicidal maniac.
yeah, I was just gonna say.
It's my type. It's my type.
I'm sure she's dated worse. Laura, Kelly, another fun show with you for sure. Please let people know where they can find you and everything going on in the world of your life and Star Wars.
Sure, come find me on Twitter for all of my hot, medium, and cold takes at @shutup_Laura. And the show that I host with my friend Alice is Forced Toast of Star Wars Happy Hour. She and I just started recording our Star Wars Rebels recap bonus episodes.
Cool.
Those will be coming to our feed soon. And recently I discussed the book, The High Republic Cataclysm, with Meg Dowell on the Now This Is Lit Star Wars book podcast. So look out for that. That one's out. That episode is out now. So yay.
Okay. Can I give you one final word, like 20 seconds? Mando and Din and Bo-Katan, the kiss that was cut. Thoughts, real quick.
Oh,
My
yeah.
God, I feel so bad for Katie Sackhoff because that wasn't like a scene. Like, it wasn't a real scene. It was just an outtake of them messing around, and people took that news and just ran with it. And I'm sure somebody called her up like, "What the hell did you say?" Like, I feel so bad. It really went rampant. But she talked about that same scene with Christian Harloff, so that wasn't like new news.
Right.
But it got people talking anyway. So here we all are. But man, it was great. The fact that she described it as their Titanic scene and that it had romantic overtones is just that's progress. That's something. I'm going to take the breadcrumbs and run with them. I love it.
Of course. And of course, congratulations to Katie Sackhoff launching a new podcast there that Harloff is producing. So shout out to them as they launch a new venture for sure. As for me, you can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, The Outlaw Nation on Twitch, and all my other podcasts, the Cinephiles, the Geek Buddies, and the Hot Mic, they're out there for you all to enjoy. And please remember, if you don't like to watch our pretty faces, you can always listen to the Jedi Way on the Outlaw Nation Podcast Network. That is available. It's usually the day after we do the show. So look for that dropping as well if you want to just kind of follow and listen to past episodes. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. And Laura, what do we have to tell them?
We tell them until next time, remember, your focus determines your reality.